first things first, welcome to the Museum of Graffiti Artists Talk Live program. It's a pleasure to have you on. You are a legend in our world.
Thank you.
So I was just talking to folks, letting them know, how tedious or tenuous rather the situation is in our country right now, as we are facing a really pivotal moment in our civil rights history.
Yeah.
And I know cities in Europe are starting to rise up. How are things in your hometown?
Well, of course, over the last week, many people have been so upset about the situation in America. Another case. Why does it never end,
Mm-hmm.
And the feeling has grown. So today there was this huge demonstration here in the center of Amsterdam. I think there were like 5,000 to 6,000 people joining, and it was a mix of everybody, everybody from any background, any skin color. People were just like really uniting and speaking out. Whereas we in Holland have less racial tension than in the US, but it's easy for me to say that because I do not live in a dark skin color. So I cannot say anything about it. I know there is racism here as well. I grew up with many black kids, and I train my kickboxing. My kickboxing team is basically all African, Suriname, well.
Yeah, and no country's immune, isn't it? So no country's immune.
No, and then and Holland, of course, Holland, the Netherlands, where I live, has a very heavy history of slavery in the West Indies.
Yes,
this is
correct.
Of course a term that changes in the. It's have been imprinted.
Mick, I'm getting bad reception.
Definitely.
I'm getting bad reception from.
Yeah. Ooh.
I'm getting bad reception from you. Let me see if I could do something about that. Okay. So Mick,
Yeah.
Given all of that, and that the world is in a rather precarious place, we as artists and as community members do the best we can through art and our own history. And you yourself, you work with children, you work in your community, and you pay it forward. And so I want to read a bit of your bio to folks so they know who you are. Mick Larock, Eileen Middle, you're from Groningen, and you're one of Europe's early pioneers, and you're a scholar in traditional New York School graffiti lettering, and you started writing her name Mickey in 1983, conquering the Netherlands in the 1980s. And then she extended her playground internationally in the 1990s and 2000s. Graffiti artists like Dondi, Futura, Lady Pink, Blade, Lee, and Quick invited you to come to New York in 1992. And you've been working between New York and Amsterdam, a lot of your life as well. One of the things that I'm curious about is why graffiti? How did graffiti start for you? How did you notice this culture all the way in the Netherlands?
Yeah, we had a very early. Well, here's the photo. We had graffiti around, which had nothing to do with New York. This is in Groningen, where I grew up. My first, these are definitely my first steps with the first cans of paint that I ever racked up. And I was just a kid of 10 years old. I just learned how to read, and I saw these type of tags that you can see, the blue tag giant. He was all over town. And then there was Pinox, who was up everywhere. And I was just mesmerized by all these names. And I thought, like, well, you know, it's maybe a cool thing to do. Maybe it's cool people who do it. And I really felt like I should do it too. And then when the New York movement made its way over to Europe, and well, the Groner Museum in the city where I grew up had a huge graffiti exhibition already in 1984. So I was being put with my nose on money, and it really inspired me to start making drawings in the way the New Yorkers like you would do it. And my parents gave me the Subway art book, and I just started like tracing all those outlines until I could do it myself. As you see here, this is a photo of 1985, and I'm doing some sort of TikTok blockbuster letters. I had no idea. I was just doing things.
How were your peers looking at you? Were they looking at you differently, that now that you were vandalizing, that you were a criminal? Or were they excited?
Sorry. The thing was, at this point, I had no peers. I didn't know anybody. I was just painting. I was racking up my own paint. As you see, the tags behind this piece, they are all like still quite from the early days, like the naive, no New York style work. And these was done by guys that were like 5 years older than I, so I had no contact with them. And at this point, my parents just moved back from the south of the country to our own hometown back in the north. And I was just doing things. So the kids in my class at high school, they thought I was a little bit weird, you know, like a girl writing her name, and I would write it in the classroom as well. And then they would all laugh behind me, you know, when I was writing on the teacher's desk. But still, I had no idea.
And the name Mickey, where did you pick up the name Mickey?
Mickey Mouse. I was wearing Mickey Mouse t-shirts a lot when I was around 12 years old. And so when I decided I needed a graffiti name, it's what the people in my neighborhood called me already. So it was easy.
So by that point, the Groninger had that big, important show. Who else, in terms of the early writers, because I know Shu was an early pioneer in the Netherlands. Who else were you looking at in terms outside of the New York school?
Well, in my city where I grew up, there's this guy, you see him in the right corner above. He was Reason, my age, and we grew up the same way, I think, in graffiti, but I think I looked up to him. But then nationwide in Holland, there was the USA crew, which consisted out of Shu, Delta, of course, who was having a great artist career until now. Jazz, Jasper Krabbe, he became a famous Dutch artist as well. There were some other guys like Zets from Leiden. This photo is in Den Haag. There were some peers in Den Haag that I looked up, like Jim, Sens, Neil. They were the kings there. And
what I find interesting about this picture, this could be someplace in New York, in Brooklyn. Yes. It looks like the painted wall with a kind of a small cityscape behind it. But more importantly, the style itself, the style of painting, was very much like New York in the 80s, especially with the character, with the cityscape behind them. Interestingly enough, he's wearing Troop. I like that touch. His outfit is a Troop outfit.
Well, the Troop was it was in fashion at that time. LL Cool J was wearing it, and I don't know, all these rappers. And it was pretty hard to get a piece of Troop gear in Europe. So when you had some, you kind of like, hot. And that character was done by a friend of mine from The Hague, where this photo is taken. The cityscape is mine, And I really did like New York buildings with the fire escapes, and underneath my letters there's like a train going. It has some lettering on it with crew names. And it was just that I really, really wanted to actually be in New York and live graffiti there. But I was born on the other side of the pond. And at that point, this is 1989, there was no way for me to go to New York. So all I could do, bring it close to me by painting it.
We've always had a sense that Europeans, well, early on anyway, had an advantage in that society didn't quickly demonize you kids for writing. It seemed like, oh, it's cute, it's cool, we could support it. They give them some money for paint, do some programs. Is that a false judgment, or?
Yeah, maybe. It was not in the Netherlands like that. I know that in Germany, it was like graffiti writing kids got a lot of opportunities to paint the community center or a bridge, but in Holland it was a little bit different. But on the other side, there was so much graffiti. People don't really regard it as too much vandalism or a heavy crime. It was just kids, and let them be kids, and it will go over, at one point. But then again, for some people, it just stays inside. Like I say, like it just.
What kind of experiences did you have as a kid? I mean, especially with the police. Did you have were you chased by or caught by police when you were a kid?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's cat and mouse thing, and you're doing stuff that is officially not allowed. So, and being young, of course, you make mistakes that at a later age you don't make, but it happened. And I have to say, police treated me always really nice, but maybe that's because I'm not a bad person, I can reasonably talk, and but I got dragged through the system though, a couple of times. Yeah.
So what we have here is a picture of you and Lady Pink, both young women. What was that like for you to meet her?
That was just like a heart attack, like really. And this was at the 1992 show in Groningen. And I worked with the museum because I felt like they had to show some Groninger or Holland graffiti besides that old school New York graffiti. And they were pretty much open to the idea. So I worked with them for a couple of months. And when the New Yorkers came, which I at first did not know that they were all invited, but when I found out, and the museum called me every day, like, oh, Mickey, you gotta come to the museum. We got Quick and Blade, and they're painting a city bus. And then I would come and meet them, and every day new writers came. Dondi, Futura, Days, you name them, Phase 2, Lee, A1. And Lady Pink was supposed to come, and of course I was like, oh, I'm so nervous, because I had no other graffiti women to look up to. She was my only female role model. And on the last day, it was on the day before the opening, I think, and there was this party or this lecture, and she sat like 2 chairs next to me, and all I could do was like look behind the back of my friend who sat in between us. I was like, oh my God, it's Lady Pink. And we met after the lecture, and it was very nice. And I found a real friend in her and a real teacher, and she guided the way for me also in New York. She showed me how to paint professionally, and I owe her the world. I have no words how much she influenced my life.
You painted a top to bottom in New York.
Yes, we did. This one has never been published, so you have a premiere here.
Wow.
And, yeah.
That's exceptional. I was surprised when I saw this, to be honest.
Well, I had to come with something, but this was on Christmas Day, a long time ago. I hope it doesn't count anymore for criminal activity.
Now the statute of limitation is awesome. But this is interesting. Two female graffiti writers doing top to bottom, end to end whole cars.
Yeah, it was a good thing. It was my first encounter. No, not my first encounter with the New York trains. I painted one before this one, but this was definitely my, well, a bucket list thing to go to the trains and paint a whole car in New York. And I remember after walking all those tunnels and climbing stairs and going next tunnel and walk, and all the smells and the heat. And there's nothing like the New York system underground. And once we came through like a curb, and all the way in the distance there was the train, and it had those headlights, and it was just whispering, you know, like, yes, I'm here, come paint us. And yeah, it was.
So
Never forget.
did you paint any additional trains?
Yeah, I painted a handful. I'm not really a train rider. I'm getting always a bit too nervous. I'm very frank about it. It's just, it's not totally my vibe. I feel uncomfortable doing them. But once in a while, a writer's got to do what a writer's got to do. It belongs to the spectrum of being a style writer. You got to do everything.
Right, and you've gone out there with Cento. These two different. You did a wall with Cento and a freight. I don't know the name of this specific model of train freight, but it's Cent, MICK, and Satch, old school Satch, TMB. But yeah, what is it? Is it the danger? Is it too much of a risk or too much of an effort for you to paint a train?
No, it's not so much the effort. I think it's more that in my mind, I make the danger bigger than it probably is. And I happen to have to draw a bit of bad luck when I go to the trains. Always something happens, whether it's police coming up where on a location where the police never comes, and then when I'm there, they are there, and I gotta run and climb and, you know, go through all the bullshit. So I like it, but it's just not really my thing. I feel more comfortable on a wall though. But as you see, I've done my thing, and this is a little top of the iceberg. Yeah.
Yes, and this Mickey train, is that you sticking your head out the window?
Yeah, it's me with the big African braids. Yes.
So
1995.
So this train, was this in a train yard, or is this train a decommissioned train?
Yeah, it's decommissioned. This was in the Brooklyn scrapyard, and me, Satch, QA, and a couple of guys from Holland. We went there at nighttime, and we ran into Cope 2 and some of his boys, and we were just all like one next to one painting panels, and it was a nice summery night.
And so let's talk about you coming to New York. What was that like for you? Why were you determined? Was it just because of graffiti, or was it something else that was pulling you towards New York?
Well, it was definitely graffiti and all the images that I collected during my early youth about New York. It was the music that comes from New York, and not only hip hop music. It was, of course, it was brought as a package to Europe. Like, oh, it's hip hop, so it's rap, and it's writing, and it's DJing and b-boying. I happen to like everything of it, but it was also the architecture, the abandoned buildings, the neglect of the South Bronx in the 60s, 70s, early 80s, and it just appealed to my fantasy, to my no, the fantasy is not the right word, my imagination. And I really wanted to be there. And maybe I really wanted to have been born there or something at that point in life, you know?
Yeah, and you made good friends and you made good colleagues along the way. Of course, teaming up with, people like Cento and TFP, and of course QA, painting with another well-known painter out of New York, female painter. When you first
Yeah.
got here, what were you expecting in terms of your experience here? Were you thinking like, is this going to be like a hip hop or graffiti Shangri-La? Because by that time, it kind of just was kind of leveling out.
Yeah, well, I came to New York in '93 for the first time, and I had no expectations. All I knew was that I, I met Quick in Groningen. He hooked me up with a commissioned wall, and I got paid for that. With that money, that was my money to go to New York. And through Quick, I met Satch in Groningen. Satch and Cavs. Sar, I already met him in Groningen at the museum show. But these guys, they introduced me to Is the Wiz. So I got a letter from Is the Wiz in a time that we were still writing each other, like writing analog letters. And it was Is the Wiz who invited me to New York. And Sedge also invited me to New York. So when I flew to New York, they were the ones to pick me up from the airport. And they showed me around New York. And through them, I got to meet all the other writers. And all I remember the first time in New York, it was summer. And we were driving around straight from the airport. The suitcase was in the back of Satch's car. And we went up to, the yard in Queens. I'm so bad in remembering names, but we drove up Newlots, Brooklyn.
No, that's Brooklyn, yeah.
Yeah, we drove up into to Newlots yard where the trains were parked, and we had no spray paint with us, and it was desolate. Only the trains were there. And actually, that was all I expected from New York, just to be between the trains and yeah, and see, like when we drive around, we see Manhattan in the back, and
wow, what an amazing way to come to the city.
It was amazing. I have so many good memories about that summer and the summer afterwards, and New York in the around Christmas time when I came back there, and I happened just to never want to leave, but I had to leave, go back to Amsterdam. And I'll come back in my school vacations.
Well, what's unique to your story is that you tapped right into some of the premier painters and writers in New York.
Yeah, I was the lucky one to have the Groninger Museum organize a show and bring in all my youth heroes. I mean, when I was at the age of 12 or 14, you're a teenager, a girl, and you have all the posters. Like my classmates would have Michael Jackson on the wall or George Michael. But I would have like a collage made of a subway art that I stole from the library. And I made a collage of all my heroes, and then to meet my heroes in my own hometown and to be able to show them a black book with good styles for that time. And they were just so inviting. And they were like, you got to come to New York. And so I did. And I'm really grateful. And somehow I think also when you really believe in the path that you follow and you go with your whole heart, you get where you got to be. And it happened to me. And I have no words.
Right, and what's true about you is that you're a purist, you're a traditionalist. You're not, bashful about that. You see it through your paintings. We're looking at your Mickey piece right here, which is really nice. It's in that traditional style, but done very, very well. Did you at any point think, well, maybe I can do some commercial art, or maybe I can do canvases for shows, or were you just driven to be a style writer on walls?
I'm a style writer, first thing. And yes, I have thought about making canvases, or not so much making commercial murals. I'm not the one to paint your photorealistic bird on a wall. You know, it doesn't bring me a lot of joy. I like letters, I like styles. If I get a commercial job, yes, I'll take it because I can paint basically anything. But I'm a little bit insecure still, even though I know I can do things. But I'm very insecure when it comes to my art. You know, when I write, I am Mickey. But when I make art, I'm more like Eileen, you know, my other alter ego. And I do make a bit of art. As you see here, I've got paintings, and I got the abstracts, my building paintings. But there is so far no gallery that has discovered me, and I really don't know how to do it. So I tried for a couple of years, but then I just got disappointed basically because
Yeah, I mean, there's an inherent bias in the business of art, you know, for women in one sense, but also I think an inherent bias towards style writing, or, you know, or contemporary urban sometimes. And there again, in a way, what's so special about your resolve and your understanding about your joy, your place of joy with this, is that you've remained committed to it, and you've gotten very good at it, and you continue to get good at it, and live a very comfortable life as a result of having this in your life.
yeah. And I after my some sort of attempt to be a part in the art world or the urban art world, which didn't happen, or maybe I made the wrong choices, like being making less, not enough art, but I decided after my attempts that all I have to do is just do the things that make me happy, and what makes me happy is definitely writing my name. And I am trying to take that into more like traditional, like how you say that, like to do it not only on walls but also on paper. Like you see behind me, I do Amsterdam maps now. I got those stickers, the slabs, and I'm trying, but I don't really have a goal right now. And if there's a gallerist that picks me up, yay, I'm here. Come and find me.
But again,
It's so,
again, the you know, truth to be told, the gallery will not define your importance of value to a culture, and this is why the Museum of Graffiti exists, and programs like this exist, so we acknowledge each other, and we champion the works that you are doing. This particular Mickey piece I loved a lot. It's these blends of blues into maybe like a copper or something, and then into some like green at the bottom with a yellow 3D. But one of the things that strikes out to me, sticks out rather, is that it's got this energy of something I've seen before. That's a masterpiece classic in New York, and it reminds me of Mitch 77
yeah,
in a
yeah,
way. I mean, it's a little, again, not as tight, but I thought, like, yeah, in terms of what you say about keeping true to a school of thought, let's just say, you're a purist and you do it well, and you bring it, again, you know, you modernize these ideas, but again, you're basing it off this love of a culture that started thousands of miles away from you.
yeah, and yeah. We just build on top of it, and after your generation, my generation here in Europe, there are new generations everywhere all over the world that now pick it up. Where maybe I'm running behind a little bit when it comes to new techniques, how to use the spray. I find it difficult to find out new things. I'm trying, but it's not that I'm smashing a can in so it sprays like ooh, and I don't know how it works, you know.
Right.
But it's just, well, for real style writing graffiti, letters are the basics, and
Yeah, absolutely.
And
You
I
know,
like sticking to letters. And
well,
I like writing my name. It's this little twist in my head. It's like, write your name, write your name,
yes,
write your
and
name.
what I appreciate about it is, again, we're celebrating Style Masters, Birth of the Graffiti Movement, as our inaugural exhibition. And it is about the focus of style. How do you go from writing your name in very general terms, you know, like you would in school, to something like this? You know, how do you build a personality around a name, a style, you know, color expressions? Um, One of the things too that's you sent me that caught me off guard was the abstract graffiti that you do as well, the experimental stuff. Tell me about this piece that I'm looking at on this brick wall. It's like silver and white, I think. I mean, silver and black.
Yeah, well, this is
It's,
done in Copenhagen during the subcult hip hop jam that lasted for 3 weeks, and basically everybody that had like hip hop graffiti was pretty small back then, and the organization invited like the New Yorkers, all of Europe. We were all there together on the same that little spot on Earth, and this is one of the first pieces that, as you see, I'm already experimenting, taking letters apart, like the elements of the M, and I cut the M, and I said I top them off, round it, and I place them differently. I I, um, I mirror the E, and in such a way that actually I thought if you turn the piece around, whatever, when you put it vertically or horizontally, if you put it on its back, that it's still an attractive, more abstract thing to look at. And maybe this was one of the first steps towards a very extreme abstraction of my name, which I hope we're going to see soon.
yeah, it's
This is
another example of you exploring this style,
yeah,
trackside.
trackside in the nighttime in Den Haag. I used to live in Den Haag for a while, and after I moved back to Groningen, I visited it for many times to just paint the tracksides there together with my friends. And yeah, here I experiment with the shapes and
Oh, let me go back because
oh, you're going fast.
I'm sorry. Let me go back because this is a
It's
great
okay.
example of that abstraction, right? Because now
Yeah,
the letters become these very unusual forms, but also the mirroring effect returns on your
yeah.
scene.
And this is what I call my keyhole style, because if you look at the M, like how it's like the if this is the M, that when you go in, it's like a keyhole, you can stick a key in it, and the same in the I, and there's a little keyhole underneath the C. And this is what I started to explore as part of my adventure in abstraction. This is another keyhole style, where I think the letters are still very readable.
So let me ask you something about innovating style. When you do something like this, is there anybody else that joins you in the conversation creatively, that or somebody that's picking up on this and having a dialogue with you about this type of style?
Well,
Or
not in these days. What you're showing now is 2000. So around that year, and between 2000 2002, I had a lot of criticism about my steps towards this style, and nobody liked it. Maybe a handful were like, yeah, it's interesting what you do. But not too many people understood. Not even myself sometimes understood. Like the piece you just showed, the silver piece, together with Ease, TFP, Jose Parla. We met up in Amsterdam and decided to paint together. And when I look at my very bold, big style and his really New York flow, fine work, I felt like maybe I'm making the wrong decision to go abstract. But well, I think an artist got to do what he got to do. You know, if you keep on doing the same thing your whole life, it's not interesting anymore. It's you got to find new, like look for new boundaries.
And where are you finding inspiration for this style, this particular style?
Um, it's maybe funny. Crop circles. For a while, I was studying crop circles because they are so perfectly round. They're so perfect. And for the rest, I've just I've done a lot of drawing. Just draw all the time, and then this weird stuff comes out all of a sudden.
Mick, I have a question for you. Do you, or were you a child that took advantage of the museums when you were a kid?
Yeah, my dad took me from the time that I could walk. Every Sunday, he took me to the Groninger Museum, and we look at art together. And I can remember basically a lot of their collection from about when I was 4. Yeah, so.
So you were already getting an art education, but yet you were getting this education on the streets, obviously. Did you decide to continue studying art when you were a young kid?
I was always drawing, and art classes were my favorite, of course. And I remember my art teachers really were so fond of me because I was like a sponge, like taking it all in. But when it was time to go to college, I had a bit of, justice problems because of train riding. And I had to decide my choice of study, and to go to art college. Like, well, my folks, they said, like, don't do it. Go, you're good with young children. Go and do teachers college. And I actually felt like I had to, I had to come up with a good story when I had to go to court. So I went to teachers college, and there my art education kind of stopped. I had to pick it up later. It had always been my dream to go to art college, but only by 2004 I registered for the Rietveld College here in Amsterdam. I was admitted, and then I became pregnant, and I couldn't combine my work as a teacher and evening college and having a baby. It was too much. So.
And adding being an artist on top of that.
Yeah, also my art practice was going really well, so I couldn't do everything together. And but my teachers from the Rietveld Academy, they invited me to come to their private educational institute, where you get the same level of education, but on your own pace. So when you're sick, or when you have a baby, you can still go to their classes, and yeah, learn how to talk about art, make art. And this really helped me a lot with as a support to progress and develop my art, for sure. So I'm not totally uneducated. It's just that I don't have that diploma. But my teacher said, like, there's more ways that lead to Rome, and he was right. In the end, I ended up painting a mural in the Stedelijk Museum Amsterdam. I'm traveling. I have a lot of work. I can't complain.
Yes. So tell me about this modern piece that we're looking at. When we think about abstraction, I can see the M. I can see where you're going with this. What's influencing these bold lines and minimal painting in your work?
I looked at Kandinsky and Malevich for a little bit, for the classic painters, but it's not that really inspired me to do this. This is more a result of just doing a lot of drawing, and in the end painting it on the wall, finding out the techniques to make like these thin lines and make them come crisp.
Yeah, what I like particularly in these, and I'm sure if Dash were looking at this, he would agree and like this as well, because it's really simplifying these elements that you would find in graffiti style writing, but magnifying them.
Yeah, yeah. And it's also lines that I find in brutalist architecture that it's one of my biggest inspirations is brutalist concrete architecture. I just love it. I'm a sucker for it. And yeah, so.
And tell me about this installation at Open Space. Was this part of an exhibition or?
No, this is more a coincidence. I painted these gates before the Open Space Contemporary Art Museum made its move inside the building. And they were so kind to leave the work on the gates. I'm very happy about it. But the work itself is the utmost abstraction I've ever done. There is no letters anymore. It's just a background and two lines that are totally the same. It's not about lettering. This is all about abstract installation, abstract composition, and colors.
Colors.
Yeah.
Sounds familiar.
And the circle. I like circles. And you see it in all my work. There's always circles.
Another thing that's part of your work is that you curate. You're really passionate about this culture. You're passionate about it both creatively, historically, and academically. Tell me about this part of your life.
Well, it came on my path by chance, and I do not really believe in chance in this way, in this too much. But in 2014, the Amsterdam Museum approached me, the Amsterdam Historical Museum, and the director of that time had visited the Museum of the City of New York, who had City as Canvas, the exhibition from Sean. And our director saw the exhibition and he was totally in love with it. And he said he wanted to bring it to Amsterdam. But for the show in Amsterdam, he needed somebody who could tell the story around it. And he couldn't find a curator because, of course, as you know, style writing graffiti has been left out of, like, it hasn't been taken serious for a long time in the regular art world. So the colleges that prepare student curators for their job in art history, they have left graffiti for what it is. So he was looking for somebody who knew a bit about the Amsterdam history of graffiti and the New York history of graffiti. And because I worked already with different institutions in Amsterdam on a micro level, here in Amsterdam Southeast, where my studio is based, and there's a street art museum in Amsterdam West. And the director of that museum mentioned my name because she knew that I have my history in New York and I know all the artists there. So from different angles, the Amsterdam Museum heard my name and they approached me and said, "Can you do this?" And I was like, "Well, I have never done it, but yes, I can do this." And it became a journey of 9 months in which we built this exhibition, and it was crazy work. The size of the show doubled half time, so all of a sudden we had to fill in the second floor as well. And but it was amazing, and I'm so happy that we did it. And the collection from New York came to Amsterdam. I did not have any. That was not my part. Sean Corcoran, the curator of New York, he took care of that part. But I did, together with the museum, of course, and with their senior curator who guided me and who knows about making a story about certain things that you have in the collection. And as you see here, a very good designer who has a graffiti background. And together we built this really successful exhibition.
Who was the writer that helped you with that?
Well, his name is Floor Wesselink, and he used to write Gate, and we used to be in the same crew, the SMD, Suck My Dick. um, and he's a very famous designer in Amsterdam, very successful. And for instance, this was his idea to build a part of the Amsterdam subway tunnel inside the museum. And it was amazing how our, the GVB, which is the public transport system of Amsterdam, they were very happy to contribute with the tracks and with the third rail parts, which is amazing.
And so how was the exhibit received by the public?
It was one of their most well-visited exhibitions. I don't have numbers, but it was just like a really big success. Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me anymore, the success of these shows. Does it you?
No, it's everywhere. I mean, if the me and Blade did something for the Helsinki Art Museum 2 years ago, and their exhibition was one of the best they had. And then look at the City as Canvas show in New York, or Beyond the Streets, or the other one from 2011. It's all just like really successful because it's now time for the recognition, I think.
Well, yeah, and that's why the Museum of Graffiti exists, because there is it is important. There is a lot of scholarship around the culture. There's a lot of art and history and people that need to be remembered. And again, this conversation shows how vital it is to connect the dots about this American culture and how far it's reached and impact the rest of the world, not just as an urban art, but as a fine art, and also as a reference art that you can teach, like you have had done in your career. And which kind of brings me back to that part of your life, is education. You and I both have spent a lot of time in education, and you like me probably see the rewards immediately, right? When you work with your students, there's a justification, I think, that's rewarded to us for doing what we did when we were kids. But what it does, tell me about your experience as a teacher.
Well, I've been for 13 years, I've been a regular primary school teacher. I used to teach kindergarten, which is part of primary school in Holland. And I think it's in my genes that I can bring knowledge, or I say I can build that bridge of knowledge from me or from a certain part of our culture to youngsters or other people. I also teach adults, but I think it's really rewarding to do so. And it's very important that well, you know that saying, each one teach one, you know, as I have had teachers that have formed my life, have helped me build who I am, to whom I will always be grateful. They were there in primary school, in high school, in college, in art school, in Muay Thai and kickboxing, and these teachers will always be part of my heart. And I think it's really important for people to have good teachers. And if I can be one, then, and if I can contribute to, even if it's only one life, then I'm happy, you know. It's just what I need to do.
What's interesting about this art, especially, I could see some of the adults here that you have in your workshop painting on the wall, and some of them possibly for the first time, that once there's something kind of addictive about it, isn't it, right? About the power of marking your name somewhere, the ability to do that, and just walk away from it.
Yeah, this is what I like about the graffiti work. Look at this kid. This is what graffiti does, right? And when because they wouldn't take a can of spray paint by themselves and say like, oh, let me go to the yard or let me go to the Hall of Fame and start painting. But when they are in a group and they are kind of like in a team building moment and they have to do it, then as soon as they grab the can, you see them change, you know, like some are a little reluctant, other ones are really like eager. And when they start painting, they all go like, wow, this is really fun. And then I said like, well, that's why I do this for like, well, 37 years already, you know? And even though well, your first time spray painting, you cannot do you got no can control. So it all looks the same. Whatever they do, whatever group I have, every work looks the same, but it's just so much fun, and it radiates the fun, and people go home and are happy, and I'm happy that I only have happy people around me when they do the workshop. And so it's it's like a really good energy thing, and it makes me happy. It just really fills me up with joy. Look at these kids. These are here in my hood, Amsterdam Southeast, a lot of kids that have not really a lot of chance to encounter art or culture. And here they are in a workshop painting either their name or the name of a popular local rap group. And they are just so much fun to work with.
I will say there's a couple of very, very good ones in here.
Yes,
Yes,
they
future
are.
writers.
Yeah,
So,
what I like is that I leave the kids pretty much free in what they do. Only when they ask me to do their lines, I will do them. But this is what I tell them: whatever you do, it's all good, you know. And I can kind of like figure out how a kid looks, or one of my like participants, how they look at their work. So I ask, are you satisfied with the work? Should we like do something, add something to it? Would you want me to add something to it or give you advice on it? And in the end, they all go home satisfied with a piece that they are happy about. And yeah, for some, like here in the piece, the second on the left, Damien, I did his outlines. I did the highlight star.
sure.
But then the girl next to him with the SMIP, she did it all by herself. And I think it's both just as good. And
Yeah,
see
and it's kind of a throwback when you started, right? Because you had other writers helping you along the way as well. So you play it forward.
yeah,
Each one teach one, as you say. In the
yeah.
final 4 minutes, I first off, I want to thank you again, Mick. Always a pleasure to
Well,
speak
thank
with
you.
you and to see you thriving and doing the good work. I want to also let our viewers know that this, if you can, you have to give a question, or please offer up a question for Mick.
Yeah, throw those questions.
Sess is in the
Hey,
house.
Seth.
Moses Chino's in the house. So I have to say, over at the museum, we're really mindful to the value of the outreach and education with children, because this culture, this idea, this identity part of it, right, of having a name is important for us as young people. You know, kind of asserts a certain confidence, I think, to amplify your name. P100ism, he asks, what does funk mean to you?
Funk is everything that's funky, you know. Funk can be good music. It can be the style, the flow in the style, the soul. Basically, the soul in the style. Like one can do like really crisp outlines and cut it back so it's like all perfect, and it can have funk. Whereas the Italian writers, they just go and paint like without a plan, and it has a lot of funk. So funk is just when things have a lot of soul.
And what do you think?
Nice question.
What do you think of hand styles? Is it important?
Yeah, totally. like it's part of the whole graffiti spectrum. You got to have a good hand style. You got to study on your hand style. You got to like sit for nights and just like do that hand style all over again, all over again. It took me years to get a good hand style, but it's important.
Yes, another question
Part
for
of the
you.
game.
Thoughts on the new generation of Dutch writers? That's the last question we'll take. You got 1 minute.
Oh, I love the new generation. There's always a new generation, and I cannot say that the older generation is better, because the innovations got to come from the new generation. So I just welcome everybody into the game, and I can see if you draw or not. So draw, and just don't just do something, because a lot of youngsters now, they just do it. But it's time to level yourself up a little bit. So draw. Tante Mickey says, tekenen.
Mickey, with that said, I want to thank you so much. Please stay safe, stay creative, stay lovely. Thank you for supporting the Museum of Graffiti here in Wynwood, Miami. We hope to see you soon. Maybe Art Basel, who knows?
I hope I can make it, but we don't know if planes will fly. So let's hope. If it's not this year, it's definitely going to be next year. Well, thank you all. And thanks to the Museum of Graffiti for supporting me. I love you and see you soon.
We love you, Mick. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
You too. Bye, Carlos.